Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, OSI family, wherever you find yourself across the globe. Chief and I wanted to take the opportunity to be able to speak to you directly again in this town hall forum to let you know, get a general sense of what we are seeing across the command, what we're seeing from Air Force and DoD senior leadership. The first thing that I want to convey or share with everybody is that we are tracking very closely our OSI family, both our total force and our family members who have been affected by the virus. The SecDef and Chief have certainly put out clear guidance that we want to be careful about sharing exact numbers. What I can tell you is that our OSI numbers relative to our size continue to be smaller than what we are seeing in the rest of the Air Force and the rest of DoD, which tells me that what we're doing is working and that all of you, both leaders and those folks out executing the mission, are taking seriously this threat to our health and executing accordingly with all of the security pieces in place. I can't thank you enough for that. Number one, from a readiness perspective, but just as importantly from an OSI family perspective. We want to continue to have a safe and ready force, but I want everybody in the game, and I appreciate those measures that have been taken. That leads me into the mission piece. And if you've been following on our social media pages, the emails that we're getting out through the week, what you can see is just a real dramatic example after example of how the force has been able to execute the mission while staying safe. We're seeing cases move forward. We're seeing investigations and operations that continue to be executed. We continue to see our pro staff and support personnel time and again step up and find creative ways to take care of our members during this time and to keep them in the loop and keep communicating to them, and then overcome some very unique problems that are being caused by this. So I have to say, please keep it up and keep sharing those examples with us. Because for Chief and I, we love to be able to put those points out. We love to be able to cross-pollinate that to other teams, other regions, other directorates, so that we can all benefit from the innovativeness and ingenuity of our force. And then I did want to convey a very special message to our partners. We have seen an amazing step up among our partners within DoD, within our partnerships within the intelligence community, within federal, state, local law enforcement, in finding ways to help facilitate executing mission, sharing information, both domestically and overseas, that really in this time of need is demonstrating the sense of our partnership. And I can't thank you enough for that. Our thoughts and prayers go out to our NCIS and CID families who have both experienced losses within their ranks as a part of this pandemic. And I want to say that we continue to be included by our federal law enforcement partners in some fantastic information sharing that is allowing us to provide up-to-date info among the senior leaders, but then also take into consideration some of that information in affecting localized mission calls. With that, I would love to turn it over to Chief for a few minutes and have her speak to the resilience and strength that we're seeing in the family.
Thank you, sir. First and foremost, I too want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to our entire OSI family. You guys have come together in ways that blow my mind every single day. Thank you for taking care of yourselves. Thank you for taking care of each other and our family members that whose spouses may be deployed or TDY or PCSing and they can't get back home. I also want to send out a huge thank you to my field leaders, from my detachment commanders, superintendents, special agents in charge, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for wrapping your arms around the family and making sure that our airmen are taken care of. I have been calling around for the last 2 weeks and will continue to call detachment superintendents and SACs to find out how you're doing and what your challenges are and what you're facing and how we can help. And I have just been blown away with your compassion and your caring and your focus on getting the mission done as well as you can get it done. So my field leaders, thank you so much. My region leaders and my directorates, again, thank you for your leadership, what you're doing. I have not called a unit yet that has not been thankful for their leadership and what they're providing and the information that's flowing down from us to you, to them. It's been phenomenal. So again, I thank the OSI family totally. And again, our mission partners around the world, we couldn't do it alone. And so we are all in this together, so I thank you as well. Again, our number one priority is to keep you safe and your families, but we need to do this in balancing with the mission and the risk that is to mission and the risk that is to our families. And you guys have been doing a phenomenal job. As I've been calling around, your operations, like the general said, the operations investigations are going on, but they look different. They're not always looking the same, and your ability to think outside the box to get the mission done and mitigate that risk has been phenomenal, and so we will continue to share some of those with you. On top of that, training. Some of the ideas that you guys have for training, again, just blows my mind. Thinking outside the box, using technology, and then figuring out a way to get stuff done that you're not putting anybody in jeopardy. So our training mission is going as far as internal to the units, and then of course professional development. I have many units out there that are continuing to develop professionally using all different types of platforms, but the fact is that continue that dialogue, those conversations about being an airman, about being a law enforcement officer. It's just very impressive. But the biggest thing that I've been completely impressed with is developing our 300 initiatives. Now, I know a lot of people think this is a more formalized process, but I assure you, you guys have completely embraced the core of what DOHU 300 is all about. And it's about taking care of each other. It's about making sure that we're doing okay no matter what environment we are, whether it's a normal operating environment or this COVID-19 operating environment. They have been doing phenomenal things using virtual platforms in ways that I could have never even thought about. So some examples are like just fireside chats or happy hours using any kind of like Zoom or FaceTime. These guys have thought about it. They're playing, they have game nights and movie nights, and some of them are even using their gaming systems to take on the world as a detachment. Just every time I call a unit, I get a different idea. That chat groups and blogs, that you guys are keeping in contact with each other, and more importantly, you're keeping in contact with families, and you're letting each other into each other's lives. And it just, every time I talk to someone out in the field, and they tell me about their struggles and your challenges, but yet how you guys are coming together as a family. This is what this is about. So, sir, I am so completely proud of your organization and how they've come together to get everyone through this challenging time.
And Chief, I could not agree more. And I tell you, I want to take the opportunity to heap a lot of praise on our region commanders, our region chiefs, and our region teams and directorate teams who have done a phenomenal job of reaching out to their folks, staying in contact. I appreciated the fact that after our last Facebook Live event, that my commanders were able to come back to me and give us 100% assurance that our deployed family members of those who are deployed had been reached out to, contacted, engaged with, and made sure that those communication lines were open. So I can't thank you enough for that. With that, I know we want to take some questions, and absolutely we've got Major Womble on the phone again for us. What I do want to make sure is that we are very careful. Certainly in using our medium, we're conscious of our OPSEC issues and concerns. So, of course, that drives some of the questions that we ask. But then I do want folks to be mindful and be careful of the discussion within the Facebook postings as well. So please just think that through. Take it to the phone, take it to a secure email If we want to reach out, I love the fact that our family engages on this, answers each other's questions, and I don't want to stop that. I would just ask you to pause and think about, potentially the right forum, the right system to do that on. So with that, we have Major Womble on the phone, and we will go to any questions that you've got. Major Womble, over to you.
Thanks, sir. We're going to start with one we received from the field, not here online, but other people have this question online as well. So with everybody on lockdown, vacations and leave had to be canceled by both active duty and civilians. Once we get back to normal, we will have folks with lots of leave stored up. Are there any plans to help them have an ability to extend this use or lose leave at the end of the year?
Absolutely, and I tell you, so this is a theme and questions that we saw with our last Facebook Live event. It is certainly a question that came up during the SecDef's town hall, during the Chiefs town hall, and what I saw is those very most senior leaders saying, absolutely, we want to get behind and we want to ensure that we've got our J1s and A1s working on the right policy to be able to have that leave accrue and carry over. We have not seen the direct policy on it yet. We don't know how that's going to be implemented, but I will tell you, from the Secretary of the Defense down to your Chief of Staff of the Air Force and your Chief of Staff of the Space Force, that is the question right now, and the central focus that seems to be a running theme within all of these that was a definitive answer is that every senior leader sees the importance of that. Every senior leader completely understands that even as we come out of this, there will be so many other things going on that opportunity to use leave before October is likely just not going to present itself. So I would expect we see something very soon in black and white that tells us exactly how it's going to be implemented, and if there are actions that the member has to take to secure that, or if this is just going to be something blanket that's done.
Okay, ma'am, sir, next question. What positions are or will be considered mission essential for PCS purposes?
Oh, good question, and something that we've had our team, I know Colonel Knuckles, Mr. Sunderbrook have taken this on, having conversations, and a lot of it dovetails into what does it look like as DoD as a whole comes out of this or starts making tough calls as the potential for our stop movement extends. What we're doing is a graduated look. The blessing that we have in OSI is that we have a small enough command where we can take a very individualized look at leadership positions, at positions that are one deep, and be able to factor in how much risk we can assume by not having that position filled or only having the deputies in those positions stand up. So to be able to say this position is and this position isn't in the larger context of the command, I think would be a little short-sighted of us by not filling a position. And a position that is looked at as now we can accept that risk. If we get another 15, 30 days down the way, it might look different to us. So I say all that to say that we've got senior folks in the command looking at it. Our DP pros are engaged in helping us figure out the right filters on what's going to be mission essential. And then we will move out in accordance with the degree of flexibility that we have from the SecDef and the department.
So I'd also like to put on top of that, I know DoD is also looking at what the priorities should be, and a lot of it's going to depend on what the world's going to look like when the stop loss is lifted, and where is it going to be lifted? Because can't assume it's going to be lifted across the world all at the same time. It might be a gradual lift, and so some PCSs might be able to happen before others would, and that will change our priorities. I know that DoD is also looking at those families with children in schools as a priority, and then of course what's safe, because we also can't kill the system with, do we have enough truck drivers? Do we have enough movers? So they're going to be looking at a lot, and they're going to actually provide, I think, left and right boundaries for the services to decide what that priority should look like, which will fall right into that. But again, it's going to, once it happens and where it happens first, I think that's going to play a big part in how that priority is going to be laid out.
And I tell you, Chief, that brings up two really important points, and that is first managing the expectation of what General Goldfein calls the backside of this, and I think for some there is the vision that there will be a starter's pistol that will go off and everything will happen at the same time. I think the reality is exactly as Chief points out. That we will see a graduated approach to this, things being turned on initially to allow the system to reboot, if you will, in an orderly manner that we can do, and make sure we balance those mission essentials with taking care of our folks. And then the other is what I really appreciated about the senior level town halls that were held, is exactly the point Chief brought up, and that is, mission essential is certainly being considered, certainly being thought through for PCS, but the fact that our senior leadership took the time to spend a lot of time talking about the impact on families, the impact on, getting children into school, being conscious and cognizant of the time and the timing that we ask individuals to move is something that they are also asking their personnel functions to take a look at. So what I can assure you is that there is a strong, methodical look being taken both within OSI, at the Air Force and Space Force, and at the DoD level to identify and balance that mission essential impact on family and being able to move out as smartly as we can to what the system will tolerate once we come back online.
Great. Next question. Will the stop movement be lifted for those deployed who were due home in March and April?
Thank you, and thanks for that question, because it's been something that we have been, of course, as other commands have been in the department, passionately following and looking at closely, and this, again, comes down to almost a member-by-member discussion. What we are seeing right now is that stop movement will continue to apply to our deployed members. What I really appreciated in the Senior Leader Conference, and Chief and I were speaking on this before we came on with everybody, is that our most senior leadership, General Milley, points out that this is not only for the benefit of readiness. It is not only to secure our positions overseas, but it is also being undertaken to protect our members and our families, as they would have to transit and have to go through some really questionable territory and potentially expose themselves in bringing something back to their families. But in those cases where we have exceptions to policy, where we have particular circumstances that meet the DoD definition, we're looking at those closely. For our IMA partners who we cannot involuntarily extend, we are writing that policy to the letter of the law and returning those members. But for our active duty members, and for our family members of those, we want to be as straightforward as we can, that we see that remaining in place. We certainly, as we heard from General Goldfein in his town hall, need to be prepared for that to go a little bit longer. And so this just re-emphasizes the point that we made at our last Facebook session, is that I have got to have our OSI family making sure that no one falls off our radar, that we are doing everything we can to reach out to the family members of those who were deployed, those friends, those loved ones who were counting on them being home, and making sure, and we hear those stories. We hear some very creative ways that single parents, affected families are being taken care of by their host unit folks. But also for my family members of deployed. I can't thank you enough for this sacrifice and for having to sacrifice even longer than you expected when your loved ones first left. What I want you to feel completely comfortable with is to be 100% proactive in letting us know what you need. Your OSI family is ready to help you, is ready to take care of you, because we've had our families taken care of when we were deployed, when we were gone for extended periods of time. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know if you're struggling. Let us know if you're hurting, so that our team can step up, surround you, and take care of you.
Great. Next up, when can we expect FLETC to open for training, and how will allocations be affected when it does?
Yeah. So another great question. So I will tell you that our academy staff, our headquarters staff, remains in very close contact with FLETC. We had a Herculean effort by our faculty, staff, and our students who were at FLETC when we had the call to send everybody home. Within a very short time frame, really 48 hours, we had identified places for our agent trainees to go, for them to be able to get back to places where they had the greatest opportunity for unit support mechanisms, family support mechanisms. So I cannot thank the academy staff, can't thank our headquarters staff enough for what we did in that instance. Right now, we don't have a start date for our FLETC to turn back on. I know that they are following Homeland Security's lead. They're watching very closely, and are only going to accept that risk when they can have a good feeling about the health of our trainees and the other 90+ agencies that they have to consider when they start things back up again. I have the staff at headquarters working with the academy, have provided an excellent package looking at the second and third order effects, building contingency plans for us on how we are going to start that back up again, do as much as we can to catch up and get back on track with our students and with the student population there, getting them back into the curriculum. What I will say is everything that we are planning right now, those courses of action are excellent. We are going to have to bounce those up against the larger FLETC capability and what they are able to do. We will have limits on how many we can put back through the system, as we always do. But what we have been assured, and I have complete faith in our leadership at FLETC, that we are going to be given our fair share and then some when it comes to being able to put our students back through again.
So, and that brings up a question that I've received a few times about how come we haven't stopped recruiting? Because the field are still receiving potential recruits, and that's exactly why. If we stop recruiting, there will be a gap when it comes time to start sending students back through the academy. So your field unit, you'll still see and you'll still receive from DP potential applicants. And again, thinking outside the box and how we can get after that. I know that there's going to be some more guidance coming down on how to do the ASIs. So keep your eyes open for that. But it is very important that we continue to recruit, because if we stop now, it'll be so much harder for us to catch up on the backside of this. So we want to make sure we can keep the ball moving as much as we can until we just can't, because the risk.
Exactly. No, and I'll tell you, I'm so proud of our DPR team, our regions, our field units, who are continuing to reach out to those folks who are in the process and of course now have questions. And again, for our candidates, our agent trainee folks that are listening today, I encourage you, stay in contact with our DP, stay in contact with your local unit, and we will continue to move the most direct information that we have available to us affecting you. You have my promise, and certainly Chief's promise, and our folks from the academy and the personnel side, that as soon as we have the plan from FLETC, as soon as we have that door opening information, we will broadcast that far and wide across every medium that we have to make sure that folks can plan and think through that accordingly.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. Next up, General Goldstein said last week all MAGECOMs identified mission essential tasks that need to continue under the STOP movement. Could you speak to what OSI has identified as mission essential tasks that will continue during the STOP movement?
No, and great question. And I think from their level, they certainly have, identified those things that must continue, that must go, and provide accordingly. And then, those things that, at their level, at the highest level, that they want to see go. I think for us, very early on, we identified that investigations and operational activity that needed to proceed based on the perishability of testimonial evidence, of course, the perishability of a crime scene, reactive cases that we needed to get after, challenges when it comes to statute of limitation issues, things of that nature. We've really let the leadership within the command at the region and at the squadron and detachment level identify those things, but cleared them hot to work them based on that criteria, based on the fact that in each of our areas, our CRIM mission, our fraud mission, our counterintelligence mission, the protective services that we provide to our senior leadership who have to move, even under these trying circumstances, our ongoing operational activity that needs to proceed, or we run the risk of somebody walking free or an adversary taking advantage of us. Our leaders have the ability to identify those, put those out front, and execute on them. And to be in constant dialogue with their next level of leadership in working out not only what is mission essential as part of that larger effort, but what within it is so key that it cannot wait, and therefore we need to assume risk. That might be an interview, it might be surveillance, it might be interviewing a victim, and identifying if there is perishable evidence, if there are things that need to be done. It may be in a critical serving a warrant by our PF pros who have concerns about the destruction of evidence. All of these things are very case specific, but as I look across our mission sets and what we are charged to do for the Air Force, in every single one of those, I see incidents where mission essential decisions are being made, will continue to be made, and will continue to execute those where needed.
Great. Next up, for those, I'm sorry, no, you just answered that one. I'm sorry. When people apply for OSI and submit the correct documentation to headquarters, how long should they now expect to wait to hear back and start the process with an agent?
Okay, I'm sorry, Jen. Can you repeat that question?
Yes, sir. The question was, when people apply for OSI and submit the correct documentation to headquarters, how long should they expect to wait to hear back and start the process?
Okay.
Sir, I'm not exactly sure if that is slowed down at all. I do know that it might be. I would have to look into that, sir. I honestly can't give you a direct timeline. The process being applied, if you apply online, working with our DPers up at headquarters, and then it gets pushed down to the field, I'm not sure how long it should take. It shouldn't take any more time than it normally does, but I would definitely have to look into that to find out exactly where they are on timeliness now.
No, and that's a great question, and I want to encourage those folks that if you have put in that application, that just as the chief said, our recruitment continues to move forward. Our vetting of high caliber applicants, we are always on the look for those individuals. If there is a delay in the process, I would assume that it is not a significant delay, but what we can do is post on there, get the exact question for what
Yes,
we're
sir.
seeing in turnaround times, and ask the chiefs to be able to come back with that info.
Yes, sir. Although I could tell you that it might go from applicant down to the detachment where they're going to be recruited from, and depending on what detachment you're dealing with, could determine the delay. If you're out in Italy, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of anything.
Exactly.
As opposed to if you're, in the States, there's a lot more wiggle room to work some of the packages.
Yeah.
So it's really going to depend on where you're at, but we can find out.
Exactly. And what I would say is just, again, I want to give assurances, continue to apply and have faith that we have it. Certainly nothing stops you from reaching out to that local source that you went in to have that first conversation with, or identifying that local OSI unit that may be closest to you, just to give a call and ask for a reassurance that your package has been received. So in these unique times, there certainly could be delays, but we'll get the most specific information and let everybody know.
Okay, the next question, sir and ma'am, any plans for those in the middle of DSIC training? Should this go on for another couple months?
What training was that?
Sorry, BSIC training, ma'am.
Oh, and BSIC training.
So if they were pulled out of BSIC training, can you repeat that question?
I can. Are there any plans for those in the middle of BSIC training? Should this go on for another couple of months?
Absolutely. So I can tell you that in discussions with the academy staff and our headquarters staff, we have looked for a number of ways to be able to, number one, utilize this talent that's out in the field right now, who is actually helping us with projects at the headquarters, projects at their local units that they are plugged into. There is discussion on the ability to put together reading lists and things of that nature to be able to send out to make sure that the applicant can stay current, or the trainee can stay current. But our intention is to bring that person back in, regenerate that program, from the point of pickup. I'm sure, depending on to the person who asked the question, which is certainly something that needs to be considered, is that, of course, if we are in a further extended period of time, what do we do to refresh some of those things as we move forward? But I am very confident that the staff is at the academy and at headquarters is leaned in and trying to think through the things that we're going to do for those returnees coming back to BSIC, and also continuing to think through ways that those members can continue to stay engaged, keep themselves fresh on the skill sets that we're going to be teaching them, and plug into their local units to help with any projects that are underway.
Next question, sir, ma'am. Has there been any discussion regarding how EPRs and OPRs may be affected if this continues for an extended amount of time?
Absolutely. Again, shouldn't be an impact, because as far as doing your mission, whatever you're asked to do is what you're going to be evaluated on. So our work hasn't stopped; it's just changed. So don't think of this as like, okay, I'm telecommuting from home, or I'm teleworking and I'm not in the office as much. No, you're still working. It's just looking a lot different than what we're traditionally accustomed to doing. So I don't expect there to be a huge impact on what should be on an EPR. It just might be it'll just be looking different than what we're accustomed to seeing, because we're still doing, the training. You should still be doing, running the cases the way, as much as we can be running them in the with the limitations that we have. So, but like I said, as I talk to some of the units out there, they're doing some phenomenal work and going about getting the job done and getting after it, and in ways that we've never done or seen before. So while the writing might be a little bit different than what we're used to seeing, I don't think the EPRs or OPRs should have any impact. We still should be able to fill them.
And I think what we'll see in those EPRs and OPRs are exactly the things that we're sharing with the field now, which is the incredible things people are doing to get over this challenge. the innovations that they are putting in place to allow a case to continue. So a court martial, a grand jury, an action may be delayed, but the very fact that we were able to innovate and overcome and still deliver to our decision makers, the process, in and of itself becomes things that I think we will see highlighted in EPRs and OPRs and civilian appraisals, that will allow us to do that. And then there is the process piece as well, which I'll tell you, while we're doing them in new ways, we had our civilian developmental team meet. We had our officer developmental team meet. We are breaking that into sessions to allow commanders to still be able to spend time considering records, making sure that we are doing what we need to do for each individual's career. We are proceeding with boards. Although virtually, I'm still taking part in vectoring boards and promotion recommendation boards, those type things. So while doing them in an innovative way, the personnel process continues to move. Definitely more challenged to get some of those basic things done. But those processes are moving, and my direction to my career field managers and to my personnel folks is that through this, we don't want to miss an opportunity. We don't want to have a career impacted where we can do things virtually and continue to move things and make things happen.
Absolutely, sir.
Next question is for you, Chief. Will there be any effect on enlisted promotion testing?
So we will probably see it get pushed. Again, if you listen to the Chief of Staff and the Chief Master of the Air Force's town hall, there is some impact on the ability to test because of course, it's close quarters testing. But they are looking to move it to the right. But it won't have, we'll just have to speed up the time it takes to get to the, usually there's a big time between testing and actually promotion release. So the testing itself might get slowed down, or it might change. I know that they're looking at it. The promotion dates itself probably won't change. It's just the time in between the testing and the promotion date and what that looks like. There will be an impact on that.
Great. Next question. Considering adversaries commonly strike when the enemy is at their weakest, is there any thought on a CI surge after this to identify those threats, or do you just envision us going back to work?
So I'm going to be careful on this because this begins to hit that line on what we've on the OPSEC side. But let me be clear, because I think the Secretary of Defense was very clear. Our chiefs have been clear, and I want to be clear. We continue to have an incredibly ready force. If push come to shove, we can move anywhere that we need to. I see daily, just as we talked about earlier, that those mission essential things where adversaries may think we're at a low point or weak point in areas that we can affect, our folks are moving. Our folks are doing the work. And just receiving my update last week of the amazing things going on, not only strictly on OSI's side, but in those things that we're doing in conjunction with our partners, both domestically and overseas, where I think some may have thought that we would completely shut down. Some may have had the idea that this would be a good time to move or to do some things. I will tell you what I am seeing from the field, what I am seeing from our partners, and what I am able to see in concert with the dialogue going on at the most senior levels. That's not the case. We continue to be very ready, and we continue to be creating effects, even through this, and finding those ways to get after things. So we will continue to do exactly what we are doing now, which is identifying and neutralizing threats as they emerge and as they become clear to us, and then uncovering those where our adversaries may think that we don't know about them. So with that, I'll hold on that question there.
Great, sir. The next question comes from the field. We received it prior to. I'm wondering if there's any indication that civilian hires from the last round, May of 2019, selected in January of 2020, will be held up or even canceled due to budget issues created by COVID.
Chief, sorry.
No, sir. I was just gonna say I don't think so.
No. I mean, I would say, the same stop movement issues may apply when it comes to those assignments that require a PCS or what have you. But in those decisions that have been made, in the boards that have been held, there is no thought, no desire to reverse those or cancel those. Certainly as we come out of this and we talk about the timing of a PCS, the timing of training as it relates to assuming that task, those will all be things that we need to juggle and work through and consider down to a very individual case-by-case basis. But no, there is no thought on canceling anything, no thought of reversing any of those decisions. As folks are selected for those positions, they are selected for those positions, and then we will work on the timing as we come out of this.
Great. The next question is, I imagine your work tempo is very high during this pandemic. You're navigating uncharted waters, pushing out information to the field, and ensuring we are all taken care of. What are the both of you doing to maintain your resiliency during this trying time?
Oh, very good question.
Excellent question.
Yes, I will let Chief lead off with her program first.
I got roped into doing a burpee challenge at Region 6. And that's what I do most every single day. Nope, every single day. I've been doing my 50 burpees plus, because, I need a little extra cushion in case I get to miss a day. But working out definitely is the number one priority that I do. Make sure I get my workouts in every single day. I make time for meditation. I do. Thank you, Doc Schwenk and the entire XB team for everything that you're putting out there, because I will automatically, if there is a meditation, Facebook or Zoom, I'm on it because I can use all the help I can get. But between that, drinking a lot of water and getting good sleep, that's what I do, sir.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you right up front, I started the challenge with Chief, and now I owe a number of days. So I am not looking forward to my makeup days when I hit. I would say that the tempo has changed. Our days tend to be a little bit longer because a lot of things that we took care of operationally are now emails instead of a 5-minute brief. We have to get creative on, of course, timing and execution of when we come in to do classified work and when we come back, which still continues, and we are able to do that and still take care of each other and protect ourselves. As the Chief said, I find that I am running further right now, finding trails instead of a treadmill, and doing hill work like I have never done before. And I've got the sore legs to show for it. And for me, being geographically separated from my family, and of course not able to travel down to see them because of the restrictions and quarantine issues, I make an extra effort to talk to them, to FaceTime, to be a part of some of their routine things, checking in with them on how they're doing with being homeschooled, checking in with them at mealtime, being a part of virtually of Easter yesterday with them yesterday morning, as they woke up to find out what the Easter Bunny had brought and delivered to the house, to virtually be there for their hunt. I think making sure that we do that, and then during the week, I find the words are so true that Doc Swank put out is schedule, schedule, schedule. Stay on a schedule, hold yourself to it. I still get up and start work at the same time. That may be virtually. I make time for PT and hold myself to it. And then even when those days are long, I make sure to have some step back and decompression time to kind of refresh myself. And then, as Chief said, make sure you're getting the available sleep on the schedule that you've got. And then I will tell you, I am blessed with a front office and staff who are great about communicating with each other, talking to each other, finding those times when we have a meeting that we hold after for 5 or 10 minutes just to check on each other and then to talk about those things within the team that we have to do. So it has changed. We've definitely got a different battle rhythm, but I am impressed with the ideas from Doc Swank to Chief to the entire staff on how we execute and then holding that schedule. But making sure you're taking time for yourself and taking time to stay connected with your family, no matter how you do that.
Great, sir. Another question: how will this affect individuals with a date date eligible to return overseas?
As far as those with
PCSing?
PCSing?
They don't specify that, sir, but I imagine.
So the stop movement is a stop movement, period. It doesn't matter. The only exception to that is retiring and separating. If you are in the middle of retiring or separating, you can still do that. But if it's a PCS from overseas, then you are in the same stop movement as everyone else.
Right. And I think a couple of points there that I definitely want to add on that, because we see it as a question. We see it as a question often. And that is, over the past couple of weeks, there was a lot of discussion on stop loss as a whole. Mm-hmm. And what you heard in the themes from the Secretary of Defense last week, from General Goldfein, is that more and more that is becoming less of a potential. I think that other than in some very select circumstances, we just don't see stop loss becoming something that anybody wants to utilize. And in fact, SecDef said it himself, it is really now considered a measure of last resort. But again, we don't see that happen. And then another point that was a great point of conversation with our headquarters WF folks just today, as we were getting the latest information on this, is that for our individuals who are deployed, for our individuals who are being held in place, each one of those days that you are over, each one of those days that you are held, you're going to continue to get credit for. Those it will show as the time that you were deployed. And then those rules, if we hit any of those times, if we hit any of those triggers that apply for you to get credit for those within the deployment system, that will absolutely take effect, and you will absolutely be given that credit.
So there was a request for us to touch on a reminder for OPSEC as we work from home from our computers. If you want to touch on that?
No, and it's a great point, and one that I tell you was certainly a large discussion at the national level last week, and then certainly through DoD and through the department. I think as we settle in to this continuing time, we are going to have to, or we are going to find ourselves getting more comfortable, more reliant on these systems, and it is easier to make mistakes. It is easier to slip and begin to discuss things that we should not do through some of these open systems, that we shouldn't even do in some of these that have a higher level, perhaps FOUO or law enforcement sensitive. We have to be careful that we don't cross that line. And so I think the way that we do that is to continually talk about it, to continually reinforce amongst ourselves that we are in a job that the information we deal with is very sensitive, whether that's FOUO, PII, things of that nature that we have to be careful of. And so that's something through our social media forums, it's something through our emails, it's something through our commanders assuming responsibility, that just as we did with this discussion, you kind of start out by putting that OPSEC warning out there first. That we don't, I would say that we all need to be very conscious and not defensive as we police each other on what we say and talk about. Because certainly, I may go down a road and I want Chief to have the comfort, or Colonel Knuckles, or Mr. Sunderbrook to say, hey sir, can we hold on that and take that to another forum or take it offline? Because certainly as we're in the process of communicating something, we might lose scope on that. So I would ask that we continue as not only the leadership, but with each other, that we police each other, that we give that feedback, and I certainly appreciate it in these forums as we constantly try to balance communication and getting the word out to the force with being careful not to talk mission readiness, execution of missions, and things of that nature.
I'd also add that our Air Force has been very proactive at leaning forward to provide us the tools to be able to communicate better in a more protected environment. If you watch the DoD press conference that they had this morning, they addressed all of the capabilities that the DoD is coming out with for every service in order for us to be able to perform telework securely. And so for the Air Force, we started out, just so you know, and the number one frustration that I get, or was getting, is VPN access and getting connectivity. And when we started, when we first started this COVID, we had 10,000 VPN access points in the Air Force. We are over 100,000, and in the next few weeks we should hit 200,000 just for the Air Force. So our VPN access capability should be getting easier for most of us. And of course, with the different programs like the Microsoft Teams that now is on the outside of VPN and on the inside of VPN. So the Air Force is working avenues to help us, and our own Matters Most platform, to help us work more protected, even at FOUO, so we don't have to use any of those outside platforms, or we shouldn't be using any of those outside platforms to be communicating when it comes to sensitive information that we're working on.
So I think every one of us would say that up front and early, we had to assume risk in being able to get some things done and have that mission continue. More and more with the additional emphasis now being put on other sources that are behind levels of protection, I would urge my field leadership, certainly as we've done here at headquarters, and I know is being done at the regions, that we get smart on those systems that can be used behind some walls, to move those meetings there as soon as possible, and balance that need to continue the mission with the need to communicate securely and protect our advantage.
The next question is, are there any changes to pre-deployment training for those scheduled to deploy in the June-July timeframe?
No. And in fact, I'm glad that question has come up, because it was another great update this morning as we asked about the deployers. I would say that training is on track. We've had circumstances arise, of course, that have complicated that training, meaning the need to arrive at training and go into 14-day quarantine before we execute that training. That is, of course, adding time to those courses and challenges. And then, of course, within the courses themselves, when there is, the inability to exercise that social distancing or proximity. Folks are taking the right precautions as far as being able to, have a face covering and, execute smartly on those. So I know we've worked through a number of those issues. So certainly while there is a new dynamic to time and a new dynamic to how things may operate within the classrooms themselves, our pre-deployment training and being ready to go continues on. In other areas where we've had training that is not identified as core to deployment, some JCETA programs, some FLETC programs, things of that nature, of course, have been canceled indefinitely. But for those core programs to get folks ready to go, we figured out ways to execute, get around that, and be able to get ourselves ready and maintain that readiness for moving forward.
And we understand that it's very inefficient because we're adding time to these training courses, and that's of course because we need to protect you and your families and the instructors and everyone else going to that course. But we still need to keep our readiness. So it's really important that we do this, despite the fact that now it's causing to add more time on to the front and back of our training.
Another question that we got in from the field, how are you guys managing all of the information that's coming in regarding COVID-19? It's been a good flow. I'm just wondering how that's managed.
Oh, no, it's great. Well, and
phenomenal task force.
Yeah, our COVID task force, has just been incredible and identified for us very early that we needed to focus our communications, that we needed to make those very deliberate, condense them down, so that leaders were not chasing different emails at different times, that we are very purposeful in those communications and where they come from. Our task force has just assembled a fantastic battle rhythm of where we get updates from headquarters elements, from field elements. As an example, the executive level Homeland Security communications that come into me, I move to the task force. They then pull information from that, information that comes out of the crisis action team at the Pentagon. Our task force team funnels through that, finds the things that are especially relevant to us, focused on us, incorporate those into the communications. So very proud of the team and how they've established, that routine battle rhythm of communicating, and then could not be more proud of our PA team, our social media task force, our communicators who are using all of these platforms that thank goodness we have worked to mature and bring up to strength. That now we are able to move information on those fronts, on demonstrating how folks are getting the mission done, demonstrating how they're innovating, even down to Doc Kidwell using this opportunity to let us stop and reflect on the challenges that OSI has overcome in the past, all the way from our founding to what you will see in continuing articles from her on our history and how our command under adversity is nothing new, but is a constant state of challenge accepted and challenge overcome. So very, very pleased with that battle road.
Okay, two more questions. With the hiring push for civilian agents, is there a fast track for current active duty agents who are retiring or separated to be hired as the civilians?
There is. Well, let me be careful in that the hiring process still is a very deliberate, legal, policy-driven process for hiring. So we naturally see our incredible members who decide to retire, separate, who then apply for these positions and put together eye-watering resumes through the civilian process and do well. but I want to reinforce that it is the same process for everybody that is hired. Where we have and where we are looking at, and we're already in the process, based on the fact that we are growing, that we are getting new billets, where we were working toward making changes, is evaluating individuals who had, who were coming from OSI, and how much training we need to do for them to then get them back out into the field. When we hire from other federal agencies who are lateraling into OSI and already come with a CITP background and already have that baseline, what is the level of training we need to give that individual to get them ready to execute within OSI? And then to our really brilliant folks who come in who may have no prior law enforcement experience or IC experience, of course, then moving them through. So the full training workup and experience at Fletzing at the Academy. So where I would say the process remains the same for hiring, our ability to then look very in a very focused way at the exact level of training that person needs to get back on the job is where we're exercising some of that versatility and where we will in the future.
The last question that we'll close with is starts with a comment. We appreciate how you've embraced this sort of technology for mass communication. You're reaching more members in the field and families at one time than ever before. What is it like from your perspective?
Well, somebody told me that once already, that this is epic, because never in the history of OSI has a commander been able to reach everybody at one time, as many people as we've been able to do, and I'm glad to be part of that. I'm glad that I'm able to help send the message out, because the first few years of me sitting in this job, I can tell you, as much as I travel and I love being around the family and seeing what you're doing and where you're working and what I can do to help, and I'll continue to do that. The fact is, I could never get the same message, nor could the general get the same message to everybody in those visits, because by the time we would finish the entire command, it would be a whole different command. So the fact that we're able to do this and talk to you and connect with you on this level, to me, is amazing. And I would have never imagined that I would be part of this in a million years. I never imagined I'd be here.
So we were very fortunate in that we had some real visionaries within the command who saw this being utilized in other ways, in other forums, have followed closely, and certainly were key in informing us of being ready to do this and taking a chance with it. And I think as Chief and I both talked, and as we talked with the social media task force and among the top 4, we really thought that how can we continue to ask the field to take a chance, to assume risk, to do something new and different, or do something new in a different way, and not embrace that ourselves. And so, we were able to grab this up, and I think from, our first one, before all of this started, we got great feedback on it. It is wonderful, and but it never replaces sitting in a detachment, sitting in a squadron, and having that opportunity to talk to a team and engage. But I love the fact that we are able to communicate with all of you, and by that I mean, not only the total force, but our larger OSI family, that we are able to move information more quickly, that the fact that we had turned to this medium before this started, we were very blessed then to have this more mature, and able to utilize it now in a circumstance where we absolutely see the effect of it. So no, it's a great tool. It is absolutely phenomenal to be able to communicate, and I love the personal notes. I love the comments that come back that potentially we provided somebody something that they really needed at the right time, and that's really, I think, what the chief and I are here for.
And I like the feedback, and what could we be doing better, and what do you need from us? And I think that communication, because we talk to you, but you talk right back, and I think that's the most beneficial thing of all of this. And I think the word that was used when they described what we did the last time was revolutionary. This is revolutionary.
So no, but it's I just so appreciate everybody taking the time to join us for these and to be a part of it with us and to pose the questions, and the fact that for those that can't view it in real time, certainly have the ability to view it later when they're able to, or to move it to their families so that they're able to view it, perhaps even if they're not together. So Jen, was that our last question?
That was your final question, unless there's anything you guys want to add before we close it out.
Okay, well, absolutely. I want to offer it up to Chief first.
So I'm going to end where I started by saying thank you. Thank you to our OSI families, to your family members for supporting you, for taking care of each other, for my field leaders, for my region leaders, my directorates, for the COVID task force, for our XB team, Doc Schwank, and the whole employee assistance program, for everything that you're doing to help take care of our family. You have no idea how much I appreciate everything that it is that you guys are doing. When I call, I even let you know that on behalf of the General and myself, we see you out there, we understand, and we want to hear from you. No suffering in silence. But as we walk through this pandemic together, while it does have some heartbreak and sorrow that hurts our family, this is an opportunity. This isn't anything that's going to kick OSI down ever. So take advantage of the things that we can take advantage of. Make sure that this opportunity doesn't get by us without walking away with something stronger. Because every time we're working in an uncomfortable environment, it's called growth. And so we should all be growing and working on our personal development. Challenges. You want to talk about failing forward. There's a lot of things that we're doing out there that may not be working, but you're going to get it to work, and you're going to figure out how to get the job done. And it's going to look different, and it might smell different, it might feel different, but we're still getting that mission done. And I just applaud everything that you all are doing, because you are really being innovative and at the same time looking out for one another. So I thank you. We're going to get out of here stronger, better, more vigilant, more vital, and more resilient.
And so, team, I just want to be able to really echo what the Chief just said, which is to finish where we started, and that's with a thank you. And I really want to stress to our family members of those who are deployed, our family members who are caught up in some of the uncertainty with the STOP movement and PCS, your continued support, your patience, your willingness to plug in with your greater OSI family and have faith that if you ask, we will deliver. I cannot stress enough that you stay on the front of our thoughts and our prayers, as we know that you are getting the mission done, you are supporting those getting the mission done at a time of incredible uncertainty. You have our promise that as we have information, as we have timing, we will not hold back. We will move that out, and we will move it as far and wide as quickly as we can. I want to thank my teams in the field and my leaders in the field. You continue to move the mission forward while taking care of our people. And again, I would say where we are right now in the incidents that we have is proof positive that the measures you are putting in place, that the way you are meeting our intent is keeping our folks safe and keeping their families as safe and healthy as possible. To all of those who have been affected by this, whether it's someone being sick in the family, whether it is someone who you may have lost, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Those losses are felt by all of us, and those struggles with people, with family members, with total force members who are sick, we feel that. We watch watch those numbers every week and are doing our best to provide support to those folks and their families in their time of need. And then finally, to our partners out there, as I mentioned when we started, our lean in from our international partners, the correspondence that we've received from our partners, even some of those partners who are in really desperate situations in countries that have been highly affected by this. I will tell you, it is amazing to me to see the strength of our relationships and what we've built together. And our domestic partners who continue to step up and help us execute mission, who take care of us and then reach out to find out how we're doing. It absolutely means the world to us and is a testament to how strong of a federal law enforcement community and intelligence community family we actually have across the nation. So with that, team, again, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Thank you for the questions. We appreciate the feedback and appreciate your communications with the task force. We would ask that continue to engage with our social media platforms, to include our new YouTube channel that we now have up and going, as we're looking to leverage every single one of those to keep you as connected with us as possible and to keep you as informed as possible. Again, thank you for the time, team.
Thank you.